Hello and welcome to Monday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic. You can see I'm still on my laptop today. I did look at the comments yesterday and it seems like the volume was okay on yesterday's video, so I'm going to persevere with it. Today we've got a debut puzzle on the channel from a constructor called apiyo. I hope I'm saying that correctly, but this is meant to be brilliant. Apparently it's got an awesome break-in and I'm looking forward to trying it. I'll read you the rules in just a second. A couple of things to mention first. On our Kickstarter book, we are incredibly close to unlocking the sort of extended biographies of Mark and me, which is the next stretch goal. And then after that, we have, of course, the 10 puzzles voted on by the community to appear in the book, which is very exciting indeed. So do check it out if you haven't looked at it yet. And if you have looked at it and supported it, really, thank you very much. I think we are going to produce the most incredible book. Anything else to mention? Oh, I just want to give a shout out actually to the video yesterday, because Sam Kappelman-Lyne's classic Sudoku that features in that video is a thing of wonderment. It is just an exceptionally clever puzzle, showcasing a technique that until a couple of weeks ago I had never heard of at all in the world of classic Sudoku. And as you know, I've been solving these things for quite a long time, so it's really worth watching. I'll try and remember to put a card on the screen. Of course, that means I'll probably forget to do it, but hey-ho. Right, try and remember. Now, what are the rules of this puzzle? Let me read them to you. We have got normal Sudoku rules apply. Cells that are a knight's move apart in chess cannot contain the same digit. Cells along a grey line must form a palindrome, and clues outside the grid indicate the sum of the digits along the diagonal, and digits may repeat along the diagonal. So what I think I'll do is I'll spend just a moment running through each of those rules. If you're familiar with the channel, I'm sure you're familiar with these rules. They do crop up from time to time, but rarely in the same puzzle. Let's start with the knight's move. So if this square was a 1, that would mean a chess knight could jump in a single move to all these squares. So none of these squares can contain a 1. Oh, it's giving me a warning. Don't know what that means. So just remember that. Chess knight's moves, we can't have a 1 in any of those cells. Now, next move is the grey lines are palindromes. Now, palindromes, that just means that they can be read the same forward and backwards. So if we knew that this digit was a 1, we would know for sure that that digit was a 1. If we knew that digit was a 2, we would know that digit was a 2. So now we can read this as 1, 2, 2, 1 or 1, 2, 2, 1 in the other direction. It reads the same way. So if we try and put a 3 there, this now is not a palindrome, and therefore this would not be an arrangement that would be valid along the grey line. And finally, we've got these little killer Sudoku clues outside the grid. So you can see this diagonal is pointing down here. Now that means these yellow squares have to sum to 35. And we can't, well, we can repeat a digit along this this diagonal, but obviously not in the same box. So if I colour those in, these two squares couldn't be the same digit because that would break the basic rules of Sudoku, but it would be perfectly fine for those two to be the same. And indeed, in fact, you could actually repeat 5 digits along this diagonal. So that's presumably not a very restrained diagonal and probably not where we should start to look to get into the puzzle. So do have a go at this. As I say, it comes very highly recommended. We've had 3 requests to try this on the channel, which is quite unusual. I think it has appeared on Logic Masters Germany to rave reviews. So yeah, do give it a go. The way to play, as usual, click the link under the video. And with that, I get to play. Let's get cracking and try and see where to start. So the diagonal, just a quick scan of the diagonals that makes me the most interested is this 20 diagonal actually, because that has to be reasonably constrained. The minimum value I could put down these 9 cells, these 9 yellow cells, would be 18. If I make them all 1, 2 and 3 in a box, so if I make these 1, 2 and 3, these 1, 2 and 3 and these 1, 2 and 3, I would get to 18. So we can only increase one of those digits by 2 or 2 of those digits by 1 in order to get to the 20. So in fact, every cell along this diagonal must be 5 or less. That's probably worth notating. The other thing we can say with certainty, I suppose, is that each box must contain a 1. And we can see that if that's not the case, for example, let's imagine there was no 1 in this box. These would be 2, 3, and 4 at a minimum, which add to 9, which would mean these 6 cells would have to add up to 11, which is impossible because we know that 1, 2, 3 would be the minimum. So the minimum I could make those 6 cells would be 12. So there must be a 1 in one of those 3, and there must be a 1 in one of these 3. Now, what can we do with that? This square can't be a 1 because it's on a 19 diagonal in 3 cells. So that one is not 1. So the 1 is either here or here in box 3. The palindrome is a bit strange here because it doesn't, the central cell of it is irrelevant. In fact, it's just restricting those 2 cells, isn't it? It's saying these 2 cells have to be the same. It's the same with this. This is only a 3-cell palindrome. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating construction. He says trying to buy time because he can't see anything to do. 14 in 2 cells. Well, that's either going to be 5, 9 or 6, 8. I don't know which. 39 in 6 cells. That looks completely useless because, yeah, I mean, if I put 7, 8 and 9 on this diagonal, I could put 7, 8 and 9 down there as well. That would add up to 48. So there is a huge number of degrees of freedom along here. So maybe this palindrome, is that doing... Ah, yeah, this is doing something. Sorry, look, those 2 cells are interesting. They are interesting because they have to contain the same digit. Now, this is... Hang on a moment, just one... Yeah, these have to contain the same digit. Let's just colour those in for a second. Now, look at the way these 2 cells interact on this box, on box 7. As they're the same, you can't put whatever goes in the purple cell in any of those cells by normal Sudoku, but there's a night smooth constraint as well. So that rules out all of those, because this one obviously sees both of those cells in a night smooth. This one sees those 2, oops, those 2. So I think this cell has to appear in the... So this cell is purple, because whatever we put in the purple cells has to appear in this position precisely in box 7. That is a beautiful idea. So these 2 cells have got to be 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5. I love that. Now, does it work the same? Yeah, it does. It works the same way on box 5. So these squares... So this square is also purple. Okay. Now, can we use that to our advantage somehow? What is that telling us? I mean, that does feel like it's incredibly important. We can... oh, is it this diagonal? So if they were both 1... Yeah, look. Yeah, these 2 squares can't both be 1. Because if they are, we'd have to make sure those 4 squares add up to 37, which is impossible because the absolute maximum I could make those would be 8 and 9, which is 17. 17 and 17 is 34, so these can't be 1. Right. Now, can they be 2? No, exactly the same reason. If these are 2, I've got to make the other 4 squares add to 35, and we've just said the maximum we could get to is 34. So that means we can get rid of 1 and 2 from these 2 squares as well, and get rid of the corner pencil marks of the 1s. Now, so can we go any further than that somehow? We can... well, I can't make this 5 now, because if purple is a 5, this diagonal breaks. I can't have 2 5s on this diagonal, because then the other 7 squares would have to add up to 10, which is absolutely impossible. You know, those 3 would already be 6, and the minimum we could make those squares would be 3 each, which would be another 6. So we can get rid of 5 as well. Now, can we go so that means we get rid of 5 from these two. Now, can we get rid of 4? If these are 4, that would be, I'd need these cells to add up to 12. Oh, bother, that is possible. Oh, arch bobbins, that is very annoying. Yeah, because I could go 1, 2, 3 here, 1, 2, 1, 2, and that would add up to 12, so we can't disambiguate the 3 and the 4. No, hang on, look. No, I've been a bit slow here. The purples have to be the same digit. So that means that where does the purple go in box 1? It's got to be in one of these two cells precisely. It can't go here because this is a knight's move away from this square. So one of those two squares has got to be a purple. And here we've got the same thing. This square is seeing this cell by knight's move. So where does the purple go in box 2? It's got to be in those two squares. Now, and that's what this line is for. Look. Yeah, this is amazing. So let's say we're looking at 4. Let's say the purple squares were all 4s. If they're 4s, the 4 would either have to be, would either have to be here and therefore here, or here, let's undo that, here and here. One of those two must be true, but this is impossible because of this palindromic line. Because if this was the arrangement of the 4s, you'd have to put a 4 there as well to complete the palindrome. And this obviously forces 4s to share a box. So I think this is saying that these two can't be purple, those two have to be purple. Which means... So now the purple in this box has to be in one of those two squares. It can't go here because that's a knight's move away from this. This is a brilliant puzzle. Good grief. Oh, look. Oh, I see. No, we've got the same thing going along in the rows. Look, those two we've got the same thing. These two are purple, so where does the purple go in box 6? It's got to go in one of those two squares because this square sees this by knight's move, and here, those two squares mean there's a purple in one of these two squares because this square is a knight's move away. So this is beautiful. So this cannot be a purple square, because if it is, so again, let's imagine purple is 4. If this is a 4, you would have to put a 4 here and a 4 here. And that's not going to work because that will break the rules of Sudoku. So this is not purple. And this is purple, which means it's not 1, 2, or 5. That is a 3 or a 4. And oh, this is perfect now, because now let's look at this diagonal again. So now, if purple is 4, these 3 squares will be 12, and now I need these squares to add up to 8, and they can't, because the minimum I could make each duo in the box would be 3. If I put 1 and 2 here, that adds up to 3, plus another 3 here, plus another 3 here is 9, which breaks the total. So purple is a 3, so we can fill all of those in with 3. We've got some digits in the grid. Now, can we... I'm just wondering if we can... This 35 clue now. So if the 3s were in those two positions, we would have 5 3s on this diagonal, which is 15. Those two squares would have to add up to 20, which is impossible. You can't make 2 squares add up to 20. We can't put 10 in both of those squares. So actually this diagonal resolves that those 2 squares must be 3s in, and those 2 are therefore not purple. And we've done all the 3s straight off the bat. When I say straight off the bat, I mean after 15 minutes of hard logic, but you know what I mean. So now we can get rid of 3 from all of these cells. Look, let's do that and take stock. So this diagonal now it's got 3 3s on it, which is 9. So we need these cells to add up to 11. So can we ever have a 5? Surely not. No, we can't. If we try and put 5 into any of the yellow squares, doesn't matter which one we try, we'll always bust the bank because, I mean, let's imagine this square was a 5. Then the minimum those two could be would be 3, plus 3 is 6, plus the 5 is 11. That's already got us to 20, so we'd need to put 0 in this square, which we can't do. So we can actually say that there's no 5s in here. Now that's, we needed a 1. We definitely needed a 1 in one of those, and this can't be 1. So this must be a 1. Now, sorry, let me just stare at this for a second. So what do we do next? We've obviously got a bit of a restriction down this diagonal. If this was a 2, it would be a big restriction because that would give us 8, 9 into those two squares. We've got a bit of a restriction here. These two squares have to add up to 16. But they could be 2 8s, couldn't they? They could be 2... Oh, whoopsie, I didn't mean to do that. What I wanted to do was to put 2 8s there, or they are 7 and 9 in some order. 14, we've already looked at that. That's 5 9 or 6 8. 39, I've not looked at that recently. Yeah, look at the 39 diagonal now. So we know those 4 squares have got to add up to 33, which is perfect because I know those 2 squares are the same number. Now, if they are 8, if they're 8, then what do I have to put into those 2 squares? Well, I think if my mental arithmetic hasn't deserted me completely, I've got to make those 2 yellow squares add up to 17, which means one of them must be an 8 and one of them must be a 9. But neither of them could be an 8 if I put 8s into those 2. So these are not 8s. These must be 9s, otherwise we just can't get to the total. So now... Oh, okay. So now... Well, that's not 9 now. So now... I think these two have to add to 15, don't they? Because we've got 18. We need another 15 to get to our 33. This is a 7 or an 8, so this is a 7 or an 8. Now that affects this one, doesn't it? Because that means if this can't be 9, this can't be 7. That's interesting to me because if this is an 8 or a 9, I know that the 14 diagonal here must have one of its cells as an 8 or a 9. So you can't put 8 or 9 in any of these cells in box 9 now. And these 9s are interesting. Because where do you put a 9 in box 7 now? You can't put them in any of those positions, so 9 must sit in one of those two close to the corner. And the same must be true here, that's rather cool, in box 5. So if we had a 4 here, we'd have 8... No, that works. We can still have 1 4 along this diagonal. So we've got 3 3s along this diagonal, so we need those 4 squares to add up to 26. That is absolutely useless. This is 2 things. One of those things is fascinating. The other, i.e. the puzzle, is fascinating. The other is difficult. This is not straightforward. Maybe I'm out of practice with chess Sudoku. I shouldn't be. I'm still doing quite a lot of chess Sudoku for the app. No. I'm not actually sure what to do here. If this was a 2, this would be an 8-9 pair. But I don't really see how that's helpful. I suppose if this was an 8-9 pair in this box, these 2 squares would be mirrors. That still means that square and that square could be the same. That's quite interesting, isn't it? If that's an 8, 9 and that's an 8, 9, then you've got to put whatever's in this square. Where does it go in box 6? It would have to go here, which would place it on the palindrome. Therefore, it would go here. I can't... There's something going on there, but I can't quite see how to use it. Maybe I've got to... Maybe I've got to do what exactly? What else can I do? 9 can't go in those 3 squares. Okay. Where can 9 go in box 2? We know the 9 is in one of those 2 cells in box 5. Now, that's interesting. That is interesting. Look, those 2 cells can't therefore be 9 in box 2, because if we put a 9 in either of those 2 squares, it would rule out a 9 from both of those 2 squares because of the knight's move constraint. So 9... Oh, good grief. Good grief. This... Look what's happened here. Apiyo, this is absolutely brilliant setting. Then the 9 in this box has got to appear in one of those cells, which ordinarily would be absolutely useless. But here it's not, because that means that square can't be a 9 in box 3, because this square sees every single one of these by knight's move or Sudoku. Does it work? Oh, this is just stunning. This is working to eliminate 9 from these 2 squares. Look, let me colour these in and I'll show you. So we've done the work on box 2. Now let's do the work on box 6. Where does 9 go in box 6? Because it's symmetrical, it works the same way. 9 can't go there by Sudoku because of this one. 9 can't go here or here because of the knight's move combined with where the 9 goes in box 5. So 9 is in one of those cells in box 6, which means 9 is not there. Now if 9 is not in either of those 2 squares, this square cannot be a 2 because we need to put 8, 9 into the diagonal if this is 2. So this is 4. And we can't put 9 into either of those squares, which have to add to 15, so they are 7 and 8. And that is quite simply stunning setting. That is stunning setting. Now, what does it mean? That's the question. Now it's restricting these 2 squares. Because what can we put in those 2 squares? They are the same digit again. These have to be the same. Now, that means the options for these 2 squares, therefore, are either, well, they can't be 3 because we can't put 3 into either of them, but they've got to be something that's in a corner of box 3 because these are all ruled out just by normal Sudoku, given the red digits have to be the same. So these squares have to be 1, 7 or 8. Now, if they are... So if this is 8, this would be 8. That would be... So if this is 8, this is 8, this is 8, this is 8, that is one possibility. Now that is bizarre, and it seems to... I can't see what's wrong with that. If that's 8, this would be 8 as well. We get 8s all over the place. No, we don't. Oh, this is beautiful. This is absolutely stunning. Look, these 2 squares, we know there's got to be a 7 or an 8 in one of these 2 squares. So look what happens if we pick 7 or an 8 into these 2 squares. If we make both of these 7, which one of these can be a 7 now? The answer? Neither of them. By Sudoku, both of them are hit. That doesn't work. So the same thing is going to be true of 8. These 8s hit these squares. So these cannot be 7 and 8. These two have to be 1. That is gorgeous. So now 1 is in one of these squares. 1 is in one of those two squares. And now this can't be 8. Because if this is 8, we know this is 8 by Sudoku, and now there's nowhere to put an 8 in those two squares because they're both seen by knight's move. This one sees that square, this one sees that square. You can't put an 8 into either of those squares. This cannot be 8, this is 9. Which means that's 9 by Sudoku. That must be 7 because we know that these two had to add to 16. I remember that. So that can't be 9 anymore. 9 is in one of these 3 cells. 9 is not here. So 9 must be in one of those 3 positions in box 3. I think I should just take stock for a second because I feel like I've used a lot of the clues now. I've got a 4 here. Yes, of course. If I've got a 4 on this diagonal along with another 10, that's 14. So these squares now have to add up to 6, and there's only one way you can do that. None of them can be 4. These are a 1-2 pair in each case. So this clue is done. This clue is not done. And it can't contain a 9. So this is a 6-8 pair. Which might be important. Why is that important? This is a 7. So that must be an 8. They had to add up to 15. If this is an 8, does that do anything for the world? I'm sure it does something. I'm just not sure what that thing is. This 7 is interesting on box 9. Look, just by using the knight's move constraint, where can the 7 go? The 7, in fact, where can the 7 go? The 7 can't go in those squares because of the knight's move. It can't go in there because of Sudoku. It's got to go here. That fixes the 7 and the 8 in the top. This fixes the 7 in box 6. This can't be a 7 because of the knight's move, so this is a 7. So 7 must be in one of 3 positions in the central box. 7 can't go here because that will rule out all 3 of those positions in the central box. So 7 is in one of those 3 squares. Normally I wouldn't pencil mark, you know, when a digit can only go in 3 positions rather than 2 positions, but here with the knight's move constraint it can be essential. Oh look, this diagonal now is getting complete. So this is 23 I've got along here at the moment, which means these two have to add up to 12 without using a 9. Therefore you can't have a 9 in either of these cells because then you need a 3 and all the 3s are done. So this is either 4, 8, 6 and 6, or 5 and 7. This might be worth notating. So this square can be 4, 6, or 7. This square can be 8, 6, or 5. This one can't be 7, obviously. That one can't be 8. So now I've used this diagonal, I've used this diagonal, I've used this diagonal, I've used this 8, I haven't quite used that. Look, that gives me an 8 and a 6 down here. 8 must be in one of those 2 squares by Sudoku. 8 in box, yeah, look, 8 must be in one of these two squares in box 7. Oh, it's just superb. This is one of the best puzzles. I mean, we have been blessed recently on Cracking the Cryptic, but this, from a new constructor, this is absolutely stunning, because look, that can't be 8. If these are both 8, where does the 8 go now in box 8 of the grid? You can't put an 8 there because of the knight's move, or here, so you couldn't put an 8 in, so this can't be 8. So 8 must go there, which means this must be 8. Now, does that matter? Yes, it does. Where does 7 go in the bottom rows now? 7 can only go here. That fixes that this isn't a 7. Right, that's quite interesting now, because if the 7 is in one of this domino, you can't put a 7 here anymore in box 5, because it would rule out both of those cells. So 7 is now in this arrangement, this 2 by 2 arrangement, in boxes 4 and 5. 7, yeah, oh, look at this. Where does 7 go in one of those 3 squares? We know it must be in one of those 3 squares. Well, it can't be in that one because of this 7. Could it be here? Well, the answer is no, because it's on the palindrome, so you'd have to put a 7 there, which would clash. So this is a 7, which means 7, which, look what that does. Where does 7 now go? In this box. Yep, it's got to go here because of the knight's move. Which means if this is 7, this is 5. We know they had to add up to 12. 7, and this 7 disambiguates this 2 by 2. That can't be 7 anymore. So that can't be 7, and we get, I think, all the 7s done. So we've now done all the 7s. Where does 8 go in box 1? It's got to go here by Sudoku. That means 8 is here. Where does 8 go? 8 must be here. 8 must be here. It's all going far too well now. I'm sure that probably means I've made a mistake, and I'm about to find I've got 2 digits in the same row or something. So what do we do next? This 5 maybe? No, this 4. Where does 4 go in box 6? The answer is here, because the knight's move constraint takes the 4 out of those 2 positions. Sudoku removes that one. This must be 4. That creates a 1-4 pair in box 9. Those 2 have to be 2, 5 to complete the box. These 2 squares have got to be 2 and 6 to complete the column. Okay. So that feels useful and all, but is it enough? The answer is I don't know yet. Yes, 5. Where does 5 go in box 5? It can't go in those 2 because of knight's move, or here by Sudoku because of this 5, so the 5 goes there. This 5 doesn't quite reach that square, so we lock a 5 into one of these 2 cells. We lock a 4 into one of those 2 cells because of this 4 here. So that's quite interesting on this box. Where does 4 go? It can't go in those cells because of the 4. It can't go here because of the 4 pencil marks. So the 4 is in one of these 2 squares. Now that's nice, because that forces this to be a 4. This must be 1, 2 or 5 to complete the row. It's just mesmerizing. It's just an absolutely mesmerizing puzzle, this. Now, having said that, I very much haven't finished it yet. I am acutely aware of this fact. But can we get any more done? So 9 has got to be in one of these 3 cells, look. 4, can we do more with 4s or 3? No, 3s we've done, they are not worth looking at. 8s we've done, I think. Yeah, we've done 8s, we've done 7s. We have got some 9s in the grid, so I do feel like 9s are worth thinking about. Just can't quite see how to do that yet. 6 must be in one of these two squares in box 6 because of the 6 down here. Don't see how to use that either. So this is a 2 or a 9. This is 2, 6 or 9, I think. There might be a way of restricting these cells. It's quite easy to miss knight's move constraints. So we've still got to think about this palindrome. That can't be a 1 actually, because that would put a 1 here. So let's remove the 1 from that cell. Sorry about this, I'm now completely stuck. What is it I'm missing? Oh no, don't die a death here. It's been going reasonably well. Let's try and complete this box. I need to put a 6 into this box, don't I? And there is nothing to prevent... Oh, that's quite interesting actually. The 6 has got to be in one of those 3 squares. Now the interesting thing about that is it means this square can't be a 6, because if it was, you couldn't put a 6 in any of those squares. So there must be a 6 in one of these 2 cells, which means there must be a 6 in one of these 2 cells, which means there can't be a 6 here. Oh golly gosh, that feels like it's... Again, it feels like a good deduction, but it's not really advanced me the way I was hoping it would. So I think we're back to the drawing board. Maybe 5. So 5's restricted somehow. I have got these 2 5s in the grid. 5, look. This 5 is seeing that square, so 5 has got to appear in exactly one of these 2 positions. 5 can't go here because of this square. Actually, it can't go there because of that square either. It's really close, but it's not enough. No, I'm really struggling here to finish this off. Or perhaps it's not finish it off. Perhaps, you know, perhaps there is a nasty sting in the tail, which is why I'm struggling so much with it. Now, let me try and spot what it is I'm missing. Maybe I've just got to be a bit more diligent in going through the digits. I do feel like 9s are more restricted than I'm giving them credit for. Maybe this row? 1, 2, 6 and 9. So this can't be a 1, I can see that. So this has got to be 2, 6 or 9. Now is there a reason it can't be 2, of course, because there's a 1, 2 pair in this box. So this square, that can't be 9 for sure. So this has got to be 1, 2 or 6. We know it can't be 6, look, because of the 6's here. Good grief. So this is a 1, 2 pair, which means this is not a 2. Now does that matter? If that's not a 2, it means the 2 is in one of these cells. So the 2 cannot be up here in box 4. Now, interestingly, the 2 can't go here either, because that would rule out both of those squares in box 7. So the 2 is in one of these 2 positions. It's still not enough, I don't think. It's close, but no cigar. That can't be 4. Is that what I've been missing? Yes, it is. This 4 is seeing this square. I don't believe it. So 4, yeah, 4 can only go in that cell. Maybe that will now tidy up the puzzle. that locks 4 into one of these two squares. Yeah, along with this being a 1-2 pair, this square now has to be a 6 or a 9 to complete this box. Well, it can't be 9, so this must be 6. This must be 9. This must be 6. Oh yeah, this is good now. So sorry, I think I was being a bit slow to spot the effect of this 4, but this does sometimes happen with Knight's Move puzzles, and I think I did enough sensible things that I hope you'll forgive me. 9 must be here by Sudoku. Let's get rid of the 9 in the corner. So in fact, are the 9s done all of a sudden? I think they are. The 9s are now done. This 6 is forcing a 6 down here. That's we know the 6 is up there already. So these squares have got to be 1, 2, and 5 to complete this box. Let's have a look along here. We need 1, 2, and 4. We know this square can't be a 2, so that's a 1, 4. That's 1, 2, or 4. These two squares are a 5, 6 pair. That's quite interesting for this square. That square can no longer be a 5 or a 6, therefore, because it would rule 5 and 6 out of this square. So the options, if we look along here, we've not put 2, 5, and 6 into the row. Well, given this can't be a 5 or a 6, it's got to be a 2, which makes that one a 6, which I could have got just using this 2, of course. That should be a 5, and that means that one has got to be a 2 as well. Fixes the 2 and the 5 at the bottom, gives us a 1, 2 pair in column 4, gets rid of the 2 here. This square's this square's a 4 or a 5, because it can't be a 1 or a 2. These two squares are 4 and 5. Now this is on this palindrome, so this square is a 4 or a 5. And that gives a 4, 5 pair in row 3. My goodness me. I mean, it's quite staggeringly brilliant. So now those two squares are 2 and 6, which means that's a 2 and that's a 6, just using this 2 here. There's got to be a 6 in one of those two squares, so these are a 1, 6 pair. That makes that a 4 or a 5 as well. This square can't be a 6 now because it would rule 6 out of both of those because of the Knight's Move constraint. So this becomes a 5, this becomes a 6. And this 5 sees that one, which sees this one, and that one, and that one. Okay, so now if we scan along here, we need 5 and, well, we've got the 6. That's got to be a 5. That's got to be a 4. That finishes the palindrome at last. That gives us this digit. This must be a 4. It's the only place a 4 can go in the box. And we're left with just a plethora of 1s and 2s. And this 2, I think, is going to allow us to disambiguate. So I think we can just go through now and finish the puzzle off, I hope. 1 and 6 here. Check. Yeah, wow. That is brilliant. That is a brilliant puzzle. My goodness me. This is a name, apiyo, I'm going to be looking out for in the future because that is a mind blower. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know how you got on. Let me know if you found a different way through it, but I doubt there is a different way through that. It felt incredibly linear, and like literally you had to get one deduction on top of another in a very strict order. The only part where I felt I was really slow was spotting the effect of this 4, but apart from that, I don't think I was too bad. But let me know. As always, I read the comments with interest, and yeah, it's a brilliant puzzle. See you next time on Cracking the Cryptic.